You're listening into Rhema with Tom and Di. Joining us on the show, the Reverend Frank Ritchie. Frank, thank you so much for being a part of the Afternoons show. And today we were reflecting on, well, something that is quite deeply personal, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. It is deeply personal, and actually, it's something reasonably significant in the life of Rima. My father-in-law passed away on the 3rd of November in the wee hours of the morning, and a lot of people might not know who are listening, but my father-in-law, Laurie Jenkins, served on the board of Rhema for many, many years. I think he started up a Rhema group where he was living in Napier, and I know that almost daily he would pray for staff and for listeners
Wow.
of Rhema. So it's a big part of Rhema's life. But I've been reflecting on his life since he passed away. I couldn't get to his cremation, but my wife and my daughter and I will be traveling to Napier at the end of the month for his memorial service. But the last couple of weeks since he passed away have just been a good time of reflection for me. And I remember when I first met Laurie, and we got along well, and certainly the fact that I was connected to Rhema in some
Helped.
way as I was working on Life FM at the time made me a well-favoured son-in-law, I think. And because he had strong Methodist roots. His father was a Methodist minister, his grandfather was a Methodist minister. You know, there were uncles in there. Methodism was strongly woven into the family. When I got ordained as a Wesleyan Methodist minister back in 2012, I think that was a fairly big deal for him as well. But our early relationship was probably most marked by the arguments that I wanted to have with him. There were issues that we would wrangle about. I remember our differing views on things like Israel and its place in the world and how it was dealing with its neighbors. Things like end times theology. We had very different views around that sort of thing. Even some cultural things here in New Zealand he saw differently from me. And so I remember we would hang out together, and eventually some sort of lively discussion would take
Oh,
place,
my
and
word.
his wife would kind of ease away, Malva, and my wife would roll her eyes, and then I'd be expressing my frustration to Malva in the car afterwards. And that kind of marked our early relationship. But I really liked him and I really
Mm.
appreciated his faith. But there was this time he was staying with us in our home at the time in Auckland. We lived in a little two-story townhouse. Bedrooms are upstairs, little lounge downstairs. And I remember coming down one morning that he was staying with us, and it was stupid o'clock, like the sun hadn't come up yet. I was coming down to have some quiet and make some coffee. And I came down, and Laurie was in the corner of the room on his knees, face down in the ground, praying. And that image has stuck with me ever since. And it changed, in that moment, it changed how I saw him.
Mm.
Because for me, more important than how I think theologically about various cultural or geopolitical issues or some theological issues is my desire to be close to God. And prayer is central to that. And seeing that, and knowing that he would have done that day after day after day after day for many years changed what I saw. And I went from seeing someone that I disagreed with to seeing someone who I realized was very much shaped by that love of God and that desire to be with God. So I began to notice that he was a man that just didn't get stressed, that he was thankful for almost everything, that material possessions were not what he was chasing, that he could make friends with almost everybody because he saw almost everybody as a possible friend rather than as a potential enemy,
Mm.
that he was generous, that he expressed gratitude wherever he went. And I know that when he was a father, there were times where he would easily get irritable. So clearly, the man that I was seeing was a man that had been shaped by prayer and that devotion to God over a very long period of time. And I could relate to some of the frustrations that his children, who were adults, had expressed about what he was like when he was a dad. I'm like, well, there's elements of me that are like that. And there's parts of me that worry that I'm always going to be like that. But in his faithfulness, I saw a vision of what I could be. So the man that I saw after that time in prayer in that lounge became the man that I started to aspire to be a lot more like. So I want to take the opportunity here, knowing how much Rima meant to him, just to honor him and to
Mm.
say that Laurie Jenkins was a good man and a man that I very much want to be like.
Wow.
Well, Frank, before we, move on, I guess as I hear you tell that story, there's a real, you look at what a relationship is, in-laws, and, people will have their own unique relationships within family, but let's deal with the faith aspects of it. And maybe, generationally and mentorship and within community, because we often do find ourselves wrestling with issues. How can we really, as you reflect on this situation with your father-in-law, look at our own relationships and the opportunity to encourage others and develop a desire to be like others who have this love for God that is over and above everything else?
Yeah, it's really interesting examining who I am and who I have been in the years that I knew Laurie, and in the years where I would have come away from many of our interactions just feeling frustrated, and moving into being someone who deeply loved and admired him and want to be like him. We got there, I think, because eventually I saw the stuff that really mattered to me. And I think when it comes to some of those disagreements with generations that have gone before us, I think many of us would hang out with people who are older than us. And I think it's just human nature, get frustrated because they think about some things differently from us. I think there's a real imperative to find that common ground and to almost, I think, reflexively defer to our elders, and to realize that these are people who have done life. They've been here, done that. And whilst we might disagree, particularly when it comes to faith, ultimately they're probably pursuing the same things that we are, but they've been doing it for a whole lot longer. And when I've been around congregations that are full of older people, I generally discover people, and it's not always true because everybody has their foibles, but I generally discover people who are more at peace with the world than I am. They have a sense of calm that I don't have. They're generally more thankful than I am. And so I recognize that there's an element where I just need to shut up and listen sometimes. But that takes self-examination. It takes building an instinct that defers to our elderly in particular and sees them as people that we could learn from.
I think this is really important stuff, and just even reflecting on these things and reflecting on our own interactions can perhaps see us becoming more and more like the people that we would like to be. So Frank, thank you so much for sharing today, blessings on your family, condolences and our sympathies as well as you head towards that memorial.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Rhema. Now, if you found value in today's content, hit that like button. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel with the subscribe button. This really helps us to continue to produce more quality content for you. And hey, if you'd like to stay updated and never miss any of our future videos, ring that notification bell as well. Don't forget to follow us on our other socials, which are in the description below. And until then, stay tuned.